Last night at Halloween Havoc, Bron Breakker had one hell of a match with Ilya Dragunov and JD McDonough. This has pretty much been the news after every Bron Breakker title defense. Just a great brawl, a great vicious match between Bron Breakker and whoever he's facing. Breakker has a lot of passion for wrestling. You can see that in the way he's given himself in every single match. And that's obviously not the negative part that I want to talk about today. Breakker is a passionate wrestler. He's very muscular. He looks like a star. He's pretty good in the ring, especially for his age. He's only going to get better with age. So, what really is the problem with Breakker? It's not really an exclusive to Breakker problem. It's just that he is the, like you say, the poster boy of this problem for this video. Breakker is a very generic guy. Obviously, not when it comes to his muscular build. He's very buff and, genetic freak and all. However, when it comes to his character, there's just really nothing about him. Honestly, nothing. Just think of one thing that defines the Bron Breakker character, and the only thing you probably can come up with is that he is the NXT champion. And quite honestly, you're not going to be a champion forever. That's not your character trait. Breakker at this point is, just a good brawling dude on NXT. And NXT, he's definitely cutting it because he has the one upside that he's probably the most muscular big dude on the brand. So you can work around that. That's a given. However, let's say, he retained the NXT title last night, so it's obviously not happening, but let's say he's getting called up to the main roster next week. Let's say he's going to Raw. Let's say you're going to portray him as the big muscular dude that no one can really outpower. And then he faces Bobby Lashley, who is bigger, more muscular, a veteran wrestler. Then what is Bron Breakker going to compare to Bobby Lashley? Bobby Lashley is obviously the bigger, stronger, better dude. And so, Bron Breakker is going to play second fiddle to that. If you're going to move Bron Breakker to SmackDown, that problem is even bigger for him because he would have to deal with Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, Karrion Kross, Gunther, Sheamus, Braun Strowman. He's not bigger than any of those guys, and they've been in the business quite long. They have the name value, they have power, they have a build, they look like stars. That is the Bron Breakker problem. There is nothing defining about Bron Breakker because even when we look at all those other stars, there are other redeeming qualities despite them just being big. Then, if you look at the rest of the roster, you have Bray Wyatt, who's obviously a mastermind when it comes to character. You have Seth Rollins, who is just this maniacal guy who will bring the worst out of everyone. You have Riddle, who's this fun-loving guy. Everyone is having these characters, and Bron Breakker is not going to transcend any of them if he were to be called up, next week. And obviously, he's not getting called up next week, so it's not an issue. But that doesn't mean it's never going to be an issue. Because if you're going to call him the week after, that's still going to be an issue. If you're going to bring him up in 2 months, it's still going to be an issue. If you're going to bring him up at the Royal Rumble, that's still going to be an issue. So it's something that needs working now. You need something for Bron Breakker to make him stand out from all the rest. Because let's face it, at this point, LA Knight has more character than Bron Breakker. Gargano has more character than Bron Breakker. The Miz has. So where are you going to put Bron Breakker if you were to bring him to the main roster? You would have this very dominant NXT champion, and he would not have any redeeming qualities over the mid-card. Except for being bigger than some of them, but he's not the biggest, so that's just gonna pale in comparison. That is why I think one thing that NXT really, really needs to do with Breakker, as well as many other stars, but the other stars have even more time as they haven't even been built up as the guy for NXT. What NXT needs to do is give Breakker an actual character, something he can sink his teeth into, that is not just him being a muscular guy. That is not just him being a champion, and that's just not him being, family of a strong tag team in the Steiner brothers. Breaker needs something redeeming, something that makes him interesting. And we've seen it with a lot of people. You're not always going to succeed at first. And Breaker is young. He has a lot of time in his career left. Hopefully. You never know, of course. So, there's enough time for trial and error, but how good would it be for Breaker if they could nail a character within the next year? Because we'd be able to live off that character for longer if he's going to have that character very soon. You can make him, it doesn't have to be very extravagant. I'm not telling him to be Quincy or Bray or Joe Gacy. That's not what I'm saying at all. But he needs something. Make him the young lion type of guy, the guy that really wants to show that the next generation of wrestlers is just as good as the old one. Make him someone that just very hungry for challengers. You can make him kind of like a giant killer if you were to put him up to the main roster, but you need to hint at things like that now. Uh, Quite honestly, I think NXT is failing with the character part for quite a few guys. There are definitely exceptions. We have Toxic Attraction, who are, gimmick. We have Joe Gacy and Schism, who are gimmicks. But there are, for every successful gimmick that NXT has, we also have people who are just nothing. Even if we look at Apollo Crews, he was getting rather over as this Nigerian prince, and now it's just regular Apollo Crews who was doing nothing on the main roster. It's reverting back, and Apollo Crews has nothing to do with Bron Breakker, but it's a prime example of people being rather good on NXT, failing on the main roster because they don't have a character. So, all I'm saying, Breakker plus a character is probably going to be a star in the making. However, we do need to make that happen. He has the passion, he has the grit, he has the skills, and he has the look of a superstar. Now he just needs that final component to fully get that whole picture together, and we're gonna enjoy Breakker for a very long time. I hope, at least. Anyway, Breakker, as always, had a phenomenal match last night at Halloween Havoc. If you haven't seen it, I definitely suggest you watch it. Before you do that, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. And of course, thank you for watching.